Looking to transform your family game nights? At Perfectly Picked Games, we specialize in family games that bring everyone closer. Our games aren't just fun. Kids and teens will learn how to take turns, develop basic strategy skills, and understand the thrill of winning and grace of losing. With our exclusive gift of games, you can give months of gaming excitement to your family. Choose a 3-month or 6-month gift, and we'll deliver hand-picked family games to your doorstep every month. And here's the best part. Right now, you can use the promo code GOLDENMOJO and receive 20% off your selected plan. Don't miss out on this exclusive offer. Use promo code GOLDENMOJO and save 20% today at Perfectly Picked Games.
Welcome to the United States of Paranormal Podcast. Sit down and buckle up for an enlightening ride through everything cryptid, creepy, and paranormal.
Hello, all of my paranormal freaks out there. It is I, Golden Jay, hanging out with
the Rocker Chick
and
J-Dub.
And today we are joined by Tucson favorite. We love this guy. Brian Greer is back with us today, and he brought a very, very special guest. It is Oracle Pink. Thank you so much for joining us here on the United States Paranormal.
Well, thank you for having me.
We are thrilled. Where are you? Are you part of the Crown Point area over there? Or are you actually in more of the Chicago area?
I live in Chicago, but I have worked and done events in Crown Point. It's one of my favorite places to do ghost hunting and paranormal group activities. And my mediumship is really something that I love doing in Crown Point for the guest of Crown Point, Indiana.
Nice. So how did you meet Brian? Through some of the things there in Crown Point?
Yes, Brian was one of the guests at Chaos, one of the seances that I was performing at for Mike. I forgot what his last name is. I apologize. But Mike over in Chaos has me every year on Halloween. And Brian showed up as one of our patrons. And I really was impressed by him. And we've gotten to know each other. And I really love the vibe that he puts off and the energy that he's putting out there for the paranormal community. And I've been loving working with him thus far.
Nice. So you were nice enough to send us kind of your origin story video. Do you want to kind of break it down for some of our listeners who haven't seen that video about how you kind of, came into knowing that you have the medium power?
Yes, it was kind of a awkward situation because I was a child when I found out that I was a medium and how I had psychic medium abilities. I was living in a house that had an extreme level of paranormal activity in it. I was kind of laughing in the video about how I felt like Danny from The Shining and Carol Ann from Poltergeist in this house. And I literally... I think I had my mother, who was an RN, taking me to every psychiatrist in town, come to find out that everything that I was saying about the things that I was feeling in that house happened to be real incidences of fatality that took place in this house. Now, I know it's a good thing that now with real estate, your realtor has to disclose if anything happens in a home. But hey, this was the late 70s, early 80s, guys. So I was give away my age. I was about 9. I think this was like early 80s. We were living in this house in Virginia Beach, Virginia. My parents, very military, so we moved around a lot. But I was feeling the presence of a little girl in this house, and she proceeded to tell me that, unfortunately, her father took her life, her mother's life, and his own life in the kitchen of that home. And I had to see it like a scene in a Stephen King film for a few seconds when I chased her down the hall into my kitchen. And like I said in the video, after my parents split, he was my stepfather. My stepfather told me, he said, I did psychiatry for the police. I did look into all the things that you were saying. And you weren't kidding. It did happen 10 years prior to us moving in that home. And I'm just like, why didn't you say anything?
Wow.
But it was just kind of one of those things where I think I was freaking him out more than anything else. Because my stepfather always did believe in psychic phenomenon and things like that, where my mother tends to find, which I think is interesting because I pretty much predicted a lot of things in her life, big breakthrough things in her life. But my mother thinks that this is kind of pseudoscience, unfortunately, and never been quite supportive of it.
Mhm.
So if
Hmm.
this is curiosity will get the best of me here. As a young child, you go to all these psychiatrists. What were they saying at the time?
You know what's funny is that they weren't really saying much of anything. They were playing Parcheesi with me. I remember that. It was like they were trying to find out, like, what do I know? And I think they were very inquisitive and asking me, what was I feeling and the energy and things like that. I think they were kind of like trying to convey to my parents, okay, she's not a genius, no, which I don't want to be. But she definitely is a very imaginative child, and she may have indigo childlike tendencies or kind of the things that I was explaining to them. They say, I think you need to look into what an indigo child is, to my mother. Of course, she dismissed it. But I understood now what the psychiatrists were trying to tell my parents.
The funny part of that is that when I was really young, I was probably in my, I don't know, 7, 8, 9. I remember going to therapy for a couple different times, and they did the same shit with me. It was like, hey, can you put these blocks in these? I'm like, how is this supposed to help my head? But okay, here, this is how we're going to keep my hour. Let's get to it. When you said Parcheesi, that's the first thing I thought of, was putting those little blocks in that little on that little card. But
yeah.
So after the big incident in the house and you visually got to see what happened, what was it like for you at that point? Do you remember? I mean, how did you deal with that? And obviously you've gotten beyond it, learning what you have. But I mean, that I would imagine that those first few months, years would be very difficult.
Well, for the longest time, my mother also thought that maybe I had schizophrenia.
Oh.
Because I was explaining basically a relationship that I was having with the spirit in the house, like she was an imaginary child. That's kind of the vibe that my mom was getting from it. Then when I was telling this a psychiatrist about it, they wanted to have me tested on it. And of course, that wasn't the case at all.
Right.
And it was really bothering. For me, I think I was more bothered by that, thinking that as a child, there was something mentally wrong with me. And it just made me feel more alone, to where I would self-isolate more than I ever have. And I've always kind of been that way, where I go within and I self-isolate to heal a lot of my childhood trauma. I'm still living proof on it. It drives my husband nuts sometimes, but I need to just shut myself away sometimes and clear my head. Especially the fact that I do read anywhere from 7 to 25 people a day. Yeah. I read on 4 different networks here and in the UK now. And I take on a lot of people's energy, because not only am I a psychic medium, I'm also an empath. So it's definitely draining, to say the least.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah, that was going to be one of my questions for a little bit later, was how do you manage all your readings? And because I know that you do it quite often, from my understanding. So, I mean, not only do you have to still kind of deal with your own things, but now you get to see everybody else's stuff too. That's got to be, it's got to be, I mean, honestly, exhausting is the word I'm going to use. I can't imagine it being anything else.
Yeah, I have my things that I must do at the end of the day. And I definitely feel like grounding myself, self-isolation, salt baths, lots of sleep. That's the key. Lots of sleep. And I feel like just not taking the burden out on my loved ones, my husband, my children, that kind of thing. I'm working through that process, and I feel like it's gotten better where I have taken on a lot of hostility from my clients' energy. And it's just kind of like I'm there to keep them in a place of relaxation and a state of peace. But sometimes I take on their things too, sometimes without realizing it. And my husband always knows right away. My husband's very empathic as well. And
Right
I
on.
just, yeah, so I feel like it works for us. It's a happy balance, but it can be chaotic at times. And my husband knows when I need a back off time
Right.
without me even verbalizing it. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, well, I would imagine that all these years of doing that, he's probably dialed into that just on a
Yeah.
regular basis. He just knows. I never pick up on that
on the
stuff.
first. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No,
I
you're fine.
channeled my mother-in-law on our first date with my husband. She
Oh.
unfortunately lost her life to breast cancer, and I told him, I said, I'm not trying to scare you off. I really think you're attractive and I'd like a second date. But I feel a woman around me and she keeps saying, Christopher, like she's kind of singing your name. And she's got red hair and she looks like she's wearing a blue kind of sweater or like kind of a purple sweater. And I looked up and just tears are running down his face.
Oh,
I mean,
wow.
he was just like, holy moly, lady, who in the hell are you? But I am going to call you back for sure. And he did. And we were inseparable after that. But yeah.
Well, how long
what
you-
a date, huh?
How long you guys been together?
We're going on 7 years in December.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, that has to be a very give and take relationship you guys got there.
And I'm a stepmother of 3 children. So yeah, he's got 3 little guys.
Nice.
Aw.
Nice.
So does that ever happen to you? Like you're out in public and like you just feel somebody and you're just like, what do you do when that happens? Do you like walk up to somebody and be like, hey, this is what's happening?
Kind of. I never want to come up just to anybody because you don't know how anybody is going to react. And then I just don't want to get too intrusive because then they might think, oh, who are you? The FBI, the CIA, the gang stalker, you know? So I think it's been more like where I was just casually sitting next to somebody on a bus stop or sitting next to somebody on a train, just a common situations. I ended up sitting next to a guy on a plane once. I was going home to see my family and he was auditioning for a symphony. And he was really excited about it. And I had to sit next to him and say, you know what, I really am feeling an intense energy to speak to you. And I described the man who I felt it was trying to communicate with me. And he said that it was his father who he lost 3 months prior.
Oh, wow.
And he was telling me, I mean, he was trying not to cry on this plane. We both were just like getting emotional. And the flight attendant kept coming around me like, are you okay, guys? But I had to tell him that I feel like that this was one of the biggest breakthroughs of his life. And if he doesn't go to that audition, he will regret it forever. And I said, I'm not hitting on you. I know you're married. I'm married. But here's my card. I'd really like to know how the audition went because I feel like you're going to move to Boston for this. If the Boston pops, everything, he didn't even tell me that he was auditioning at that location as well. He had several auditions. And I said, I feel Boston. And then he did call me 2 weeks later and say, holy shit, girl.
Wow.
And I did tell him that they would be offering him the salary that he wanted. And they did. And then some. He said they offered him even more than he thought he was going to get. And so, yeah, I feel like I'm called to people that are just strangers every once in a while, just because I'm not really big on transit alone because I live in Chicago. So I'm rarely by myself on a subway, a train, a plane, that kind of thing. But when I am, I've had clients kind of come to me without payment. Like they're not coming to me per se, like to pay for a reading. They're just sitting next to me, innocent bystander. And then I feel a loved one come through and I say, hey, I'm not a weirdo, but I feel like, well, I am a little, but let me tell you what I'm feeling. And then nobody's ever said, girl, get away from me. No one's ever said, I think you're crazy. Thank goodness. I have freaked out Uber drivers. They're fun. They've actually been some of the best clients for me too, and they're just like, "Oh, give me your card. I'll give them to my passengers." And I've actually had Uber drivers give my cards to their passengers, and lifelong clients to this day here in Chicago.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Now you said something about UK then too. You're doing, are you doing online readings or how does that work?
Yes, I work for 3 different online companies in the UK, and what they do is they're kind of like websites where people go to speak to psychic mediums, and they see our little face like Zoom, and
Uh-huh.
they pay their membership, and they come into our live chat, kind of like they do on TikTok, Instagram, that kind of thing, and they ask if we're able to read them at that time, if we're open for a read. We get to know each other for like 2 to 3 minutes. I'm not allowed to give them any information other than I'm available. I can take them. This is how much time I have to take them. Then they schedule through the operator, and then we connect private and chat.
Oh, wow.
That's cool.
I've been doing the UK just a little bit. It's kind of fresh. And I also perform my readings at the Bristol Renaissance Fair. I'm going to be there this Sunday. Brian knows. And I also do spirit expos, spiritual conventions. And I recently was asked to be the head reader at the Ascenders. It's a cannabis company here in Chicago, and they have several locations, and they wanted me to do readings at their cannabis booth. I was like, well, that has to be interesting. And it actually panned out really nicely because I'm so used to having to pay to be at these booths, like paying as a vendor,
Right.
and they're not cheap by any means to be a psychic medium to pay for these booths so you can get patrons. And they always kind of cram us all in the same area, which I think is kind of harsh because we don't want to see that, we're competing with each other. You know what I mean? Because I don't feel like we're in competition at all.
Right.
But I feel like it's the customers are drawn to who they're drawn to, at the booths. And I loved it that they put me all the way on the other side of the convention center. So I didn't have to sit near any of the other psychics, and nobody had to pay me personally to get a reading because the company paid me my day
Oh,
rate.
wow.
And it
Nice.
worked out so much better. And it was just so much easier for me just to relax and give the reading the best of my ability in the time frame that we had. Because when people pay, I have to really speed it up. I have to I can't take my time with people when they pay me and not the vendor, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
No, it does. Yeah.
Now, because I think in the video you talk about you actually have is it 15-minute sessions and 30-minute sessions
Mhm.
and then an hour? You also will book an hour with somebody. Is that correct?
Yes, most people book an hour in private if they're looking to seek answers from their loved ones and spirit guides. And we all
Right.
have spirit guides. Always remember that. But I feel like somebody always comes through, and I always protect myself with white light. So I only channel people's energies that are love and light, God energy. Because the misconception is out there, unfortunately, with religious exemptions and dogma and all this other stuff. But I've never had any kind of weird incidences, thank goodness. People ask me that all the time, and I'm like, no, just seeing ghosts. I've had some weird incidences actually seeing ghosts. But speaking to them, no, they're pretty relaxed when they come through. I feel an intense energy sometimes come through me where I feel like I'm having an anxiety attack sometimes when I'm picking up more than one energy. For instance, there was a guy at the Renaissance 2 years ago, and he had about maybe 8 to 9 people around him.
Oh, wow.
And I said, I hate to ask, but what is it that you do for a living? And he was like, I'm in the mortuary science
Mhm.
business. So, okay.
Yeah, I knew that was coming.
I was like, you got a lot of folks around you. So yeah, I mean, there for the most part, people ask me, do I feel any side effects or anything weighing on me after a reading? I always close that door properly, and I always cleanse, but I've never had anything unfortunate, I should say, happen.
Do you feel like when you're giving a reading that the people that are coming through are not they're not there to be malicious. They just have a message to put through, and that's why you haven't had that. Is that kind of the
Well, there's a different scenario if I were to go and to do the kind of things that Brian does. Like I've dabbled in that, and I was telling him, I'm like, no, we're going in, and we know there's a lot of paranormal activity in that space, and it's very heavy, and we've seen a lot of crazy things, and having to run tail out of some of these jails and old schools and hospitals. That's a different story. Now, I mean, people have asked me as a psychic medium, have I ever been interested in getting involved in any kind of occult demonology, study, research, cleansing spaces? I have to say, I am too petrified for anything like that because I was telling Brian not too long ago, anytime that I've done some tours with people where I've gone into some of these really haunted spaces, I can't breathe.
Mm-hmm.
I can't breathe. I feel like I'm hyperventilating and I'll pass out. I've done it before. Yeah. So I tell people I'm here just to channel Groundy Grandma and Mom and Dad, your high school teacher or something, whoever comes through. And it's interesting because I've had the same clients for so long. I mean, I can't even imagine how many years I've been working with certain clients. And it's interesting because sometimes different people do come through for them when I have a reading. So if they have a message, they come through. For instance, I have a really good client, Dr. Emery, and she's been my dentist for years. And sometimes her mother-in-law comes through that she's never met as well, her grandmother, her spirit guide, her grandfather. It just depends on what the situation is and what she's looking at and who needs to come through always comes through with messages. And I open that third eye, and sometimes with my remote viewing, I see locations, I see where people are. That's how I've been able to help authorities. And it's like watching a movie sometimes when I really get into it and I have to look at something to help somebody get closure or find out if there was a crime involved or theft or anything heinous. I have looked into stuff like that, and I have to say I feel like that's a lot more rewarding for me because I can give closure to people who have had harm done to them or their children. I said,
Yeah,
go ahead.
Brian was telling me that have worked with the police and stuff like that to help with some of the um uh, maybe some of the
Okay.
trafficking and some of the stuff
Yes,
like
yes,
that.
yeah. Well, I didn't know if you wanted me to talk about that, but yes, when I lived in New Orleans, I dated a detective for a short period of time, and he was telling me about missing children and missing human cases. Let me plug this in. And it kind of fascinated me at first. And he says, why are you so fascinated by this type of thing? I mean, why are you fascinated about like researching and getting involved to help find missing children? And I told him, well, because it almost happened to me, unfortunately.
Oh wow.
Yeah. And it kind of happened when I was in that house with a lot of paranormal activity. The young spirit told me to look out the window, that there was a man watching me in the window. And it was the man that actually was kind of stalking me at the time. So I really have always been interested in helping find missing people through my remote viewing abilities. Oops, sorry guys. I'm trying to set up because I had to plug in my charger. I thought it was charged enough, but I guess not.
Oh,
So yeah. And I would say it was a very stressful situation. I did help solve a couple of cases and bring some criminals to justice. And what's the most unfortunate thing from doing a lot of the investigations back when I lived in New Orleans is even with helping local areas here or even in Australia, in the UK, where I've helped authority, it's always somebody that the child knows.
mm-hmm.
It always seems that it's like a neighbor or a boyfriend of the mom that kind of took off, or a step parent or a grandparent, or usually if it's like a trafficking situation, this child has been targeted by something that the parent unfortunately leaked out on the internet, like posting their location kind of thing. I've seen that in the last 10 years. I've seen more cases get solved because he was stalking mom's socials. on where the child was located, where ballet lessons were located, karate class, that kind of thing.
Right. I'm trying to remember how it was a couple years ago. Somebody put a video out where they really talked about how open we become with something like Facebook, and
Yeah.
we're all tagging wherever we're at, or we're going on vacation, and we're going to be away from our house for 2 weeks. We can't wait. We're going on vacation.
Or they like have their kids' first day of school. It says where the school is, who
Right.
their teacher is, and all that.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. We don't really seem to learn, from that. It's kind of crazy, because then it opens up, well, that house is going to be empty for a week or 2 weeks. And we all know Golden Jay has a bunch of equipment. So let's go over and check it out,
Be like Home Alone.
just Ozzy the dog running around here
Yeah.
dropping paint cans on everybody. That'll be great. I feel like we're leaving Brian out of the conversation, though.
Oh no.
Did you want to bump in anything here, Brian?
No, she's doing a great job. I mean, if you got head, heard her story. Although we did meet in probably one of the most active places I've ever been, and I was surprised.
Yeah.
He was because there had to have been a lot going on around us.
That night I kept feeling like I was being followed. That's why I kept walking around the table, Brian. I kept going around, and you notice how I kept coming back to you, and I kept standing behind you. I'm like, they're not getting through me with him here.
That's
I
right.
felt
That's right.
more protective with Brian being there, because he was like, I think, weren't you like my last group?
Yeah, last group, and I was the last person to be in your group because I was supposed to be in another group because Mike put me in the same room as the psychic I was with the hour before. I'm like, hey, Mike.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
With this one, can I have somebody else? And he went around you, and you're like, yeah, let him in. He was in her room.
Oh, yeah, he kept following me. He loved following me around. And the faster that I walked around the table, I felt like he was trying to walk faster. He was very territorial. He did not want us there at all. And I kept smelling menthol cigarettes. I remember that.
Well, that's crazy.
We were in the oh, it could have been one of the sheriffs. It could have been a sheriff's wife. It could have been one of the kids.
Yeah.
Or it could have been one of the guards.
I always smell things sometimes with spirit. It's not always what you think. Sometimes it's cigars, cigarettes. Sometimes I taste things in my mouth. One time a guy came to the seance when we were at the Hall of Justice, and he came in kind of late, so I felt bad for him. So when he sat down, he was like, am I late? Am I late? And I'm like, no, you're just in time, because I'm going to call on you, because I'm feeling a man off of you like you wouldn't believe. And I described him to a T, and his mouth dropped to the floor, and he's like looking at me like, yeah, I know who that is. And I said, how come I taste cigars in my mouth? And he goes, because he died of emphysema, because he chain smoked cigars all the time.
Oh, man.
So yeah, sometimes I do taste things in my mouth. I've tasted like salt water. Because they drowned it in the ocean. I've tasted blood. Unfortunately, I've tasted food. Like I've tasted like nectar, kind of like honey. Like it tasted like something sweet, like nectar juice from like a peach or honey. I've tasted that for some reason before. I've tasted all kinds of things, and I sometimes smell, like I said, cigarettes. That's clairsentience that I have. Clairaudience, I can actually hear them sometimes come through, and sometimes the words just come out of my mouth for the most part, because people are like, "Do you really like all the time hear random people talking?" And I'm like, "No, that is schizophrenia. No." I don't know. It's just the words come to me. When I really start to tap in, I see them in my mind, the words just fly out of my mouth. And I have had clients tell me this, even though I didn't catch it until they recorded me. Sometimes my accent sounds a little different. That kind of freaks me out a little bit, though, because I've caught myself like sounding a little different once they've recorded me. And it was the accent of the person that I was channeling.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
Yeah. There's one client in particular, her mom's Jamaican, and she says, "You do kind of sound a little bit more like my mom when you talk." And I'm
Oh, that's
like,
awesome.
okay, yeah. And then she recorded me, and then I really was like, okay, I didn't even notice. Because
Right.
half the time I don't remember anything that I say. I don't black out by any means. I know I'm there, but the words are coming out so fast sometimes that I have no control. And sometimes they like show me things like I'm watching a film. And it's interesting, like I had a reading yesterday where I kept seeing like these black boxes. They looked like containers, storage containers. And she said, "Well, I am moving." And I said, "Well, I feel like your husband, who, because I've channeled him before, wants you to put things of his in those boxes for safekeeping. And he really doesn't want his brother to get to his personal heirlooms that he wants for his daughter, your daughter, that you guys had together." And she goes, "Oh, yeah, oh, yeah." And I said, "They look like two very expensive watches. And it also looks like a necklace with like some kind of pendant hanging down." She's like, "Yeah, I'm wearing it. It's a medallion." So, yeah, I think the reason I can see things more that they're trying to convey is because they want to make sure that you're protecting those items for yourself, especially when they know that they could be prone to theft.
Right.
Because I think a lot of spirits come through to tell me, okay, this person's going to try to come after the house. This person's going to try to steal your inheritance. That happens more than people think. Also, spirit likes to come through and tell me how they've crossed over. And unfortunately, I've been seeing a lot of fatality from COVID in the last 4 years. A lot
Oh,
of
wow.
spirit are telling me that they lost their life from COVID and can't say it sometimes on the live. So y'all know what this is. So, and I'm just like, yeah, I understand. And it's heartbreaking because I've been getting a lot more of those.
Are they coming forward just to kind of say goodbye, that final goodbye then? And
They're coming forward because they know there's a lot of unexplained answers from their physicians that they weren't explained, they weren't told, they weren't shown, and their family members are just definitely broken and lost. And a lot of these doctors didn't have answers for
right.
their passing. They blamed it on everything else. And Spirit always tells me it's in the blood, it's in the blood, and they show me what it looks like, and I'm like, yeah, I understand. And that's kind of the hardest part of my job when they come in and they're like, "So we really don't know how she died, or we don't know how it happened." It's just the cops say it's not foul play, and sometimes it is.
Mm-hmm.
It is. A lot of times, I have seen, especially when I lived in New Orleans and New York, I've seen a lot of my clients, loved ones pass away from the hands of suicide, but it's not suicide. And they tell me right away, "I didn't kill myself. You need to let her know this was foul play." And that kind of scares me sometimes when I get those leads, but I've had plenty of them. Oh yeah, over the years.
Wow. Wow. All right. Let me ask you the Hollywood question here. And I know I call it the Hollywood question because, Hollywood gives us, shows like The Ghost Whisperer and Medium and all those. When you have to go into just a normal, I mean, not a haunted hospital, but like a normal hospital, do you run into spirits in there, or are you able to kind of keep your focus on what you're doing, and if you're just visiting a loved one or something like that?
Actually, I've been paid to go to hospitals. Yeah, mainly hospice.
Okay.
And I've been able to feel the energy once I get in there, and I always know when it's time. So a lot of them actually want to speak to their loved ones before they come, and they want to know who's coming for them. They want to know if
Oh,
it's, what angel, is it my husband, my late husband coming? Is it my mom and dad coming? A lot of the family have paid me to go into hospice units, even here in Illinois.
wow.
Yeah. My
I
mom was a hospice nurse for a while when I was a kid. More bad influence, of course, from mom here, but she brought me to work with her a few times. Bad idea. Bad one. Because I got really attached to a lot of the, she was in a veterans home at the time, and I got attached to a lot of the older people there. And it was like I had like 50 grandma and grandpas, and I always knew when one of them was ready to go. Especially when I worked at night with her and I was just at the nursing station, and all of a sudden I would see a little light coming out of the door, underneath the door, and I said, yeah, you might want to go check on Mr. Stanley or Miss whatever. I think tonight's the night. And my mother always thought it was crazy that I always knew, still deny the fact that I'm a medium, wanting me to go to play Parcheesi with Dr. Stewart again. But I just always knew. I knew when it was time for my grandfather to cross from stomach cancer. Unfortunately, my mother actually asked me to go stay with my grandmother for a few days because we all felt it coming in a way. And I was there when my grandfather passed, and I saw his angels come into the room and take him. He was the only one that I saw it like so vividly, and I think it's because, you know, he is my blood. He was like my father. But for everybody else, it's just this beautiful light that comes in, and it always hovers over the bed. Sometimes it comes through the door or the window, and it's so fast, but it's very beautiful to see.
Oh, I bet it is. I bet it really is. I am two instances for me. My grandfather being the one. I'm thinking if it was my grandma.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't that. I mean, I don't have what you have, but it was a smell. There was a smell in the room just hours before each of them passed away, and I remember it, and that's something that always will stick with me forever. I don't know that it means anything. It was a smell. It was, I always associated it with death, and I don't smell it anywhere else, just those two instances. But, yeah, I've never got to see well, I haven't really been around a lot of people who are actually, passing at the time, you know, in a room or something like that. Most of it's
Well, and it's
secondhand account.
It's crazy that you said, you know, that you saw the angels that came, was it? And for your grandpa. And my husband he's lost his dad, his brother, his mom. But when his mom was passing, she told us that there were angels in the room and that she could see that there were like 3 of them. And she was just crying, and then she just got real quiet, and then she left.
Peacefully gone.
So I think that's cool. That's nice to know too. You know,
it is nice to know. It is nice to know that they just come down and they take you, and it's nice and comforting.
I think that they get, I didn't mean to interrupt you. From what I'm gathering from spirit and from people and just being there, they talk to them for a while. Like my grandmother was starting to kind of hallucinate a little bit, and it wasn't from the medication. She just says, this little girl keeps coming in. And this is what my mother told me, because unfortunately, I wasn't there the night that my grandmother passed. But I remember my mom called me and she goes, Grandma keeps talking about how this little girl keeps coming in the room, and there's no little girl. So do you think this is her angels are coming like grandpa, or do you think that the medication's pretty strong tonight and it's just, you know, playing mind tricks on her? And I was like, no, anything that comes out of that woman's mouth is genuine, and you know it, and you know that I'm able to do this, and you know that she has abilities too. And then I come to find out with my research and doing this, I think everyone's angels kind of give them an indication that they're ready to come for them, and they know they get them prepared a little bit. And it's just so beautiful to speculate it, because it's so many different colors of lights, and I've seen orbs dancing around them, and this beautiful light came through the window, and it was like a prism of like pink and like purple, like beautiful glowing lights that came through, and they kind of hovered over him, and it looked like he kind of like lifted a little bit, levitated a little bit off the bed for a couple of seconds, and the light kind of took him, and then I saw him just kind of, you know, the whole light over his face kind of went back to darkness again. And I was like, yep, he's gone. And then they came in and I said, sure enough, he's gone. And my mom's like, yeah, how do you keep doing this? How do you keep knowing how to do this? I'm like, I'm not doing anything. I'm seeing the lights and colors around people. But I feel like it can be overwhelming for people in near-death experiences. I've had a few where we hear spirits screaming at us, turn, run. It's like, okay. I did hear spirit scream in my ear, run, when the man that was trying to abduct me got closer to my bus stop, and he was kind of like stalking me for a while. I was the only child at that bus stop because I was going to a private school. And I just remember thinking, just because it was the 80s, why was I there alone? Why wouldn't I have anybody watch? It was just kind of like the latchkey era. Like we allowed the kids just to run rampant. And, it was kind of the old golden rule in my era. When that street light comes on, it's time to get your butt home. So it
Yep.
was just, yeah, it was more like everybody kind of watched everybody's kids. But in my
Mhm.
neighborhood, it was so many different military families and everybody was coming and going. So nobody could keep track of whose kids, what, where, how. So it was kind of like I made myself more of a target because I didn't say anything for a while. I was too scared. Because
Right.
anytime I mentioned anything to my mother, oh, this is happening, or I feel a ghost, or whatever it may be, I was constantly shut down and told that, maybe I need to seek therapy again. And I just got sick of it.
Right.
I kind of held a lot of things that I saw and felt as a child to myself, just because every time I told, so I ended up telling my teacher, and that's how, things got investigated. I was trying to think. I was like, did I tell my, no, I kind of did tell my mom, but I told her much later after I told my principal and my headmaster, my principal. And they took action because they're mandated reporters. They have to, as they
Right.
should. But it was just more like anything I ever said to her, it was just an immediate dismissal. You're hallucinating. You need to seek a therapist.
And I bet that happens with a lot of people that have that ability.
Every therapist that I went to was just like, you're not schizophrenic, you're not bipolar, you're not this, you're not that. You're not hearing voices in your head. I felt like the little kid from the movie. I see dead people. That's all it is. I just see dead people. But it was more like, not only did I see them, I smelled them, I heard them. I knew they were there.
Hmm.
I think with my experience living in a house with paranormal activity, it wasn't so much a house that I lived in that had the most intense demonic energy that I ever lived in. It was actually a school in my dormitory when I was living upstate in Baltimore, Maryland. I went to a school right out of high school to finish up because I didn't get a chance to get all my accredited hours because I was working. And I was living with my dad and we were having problems, and I went off to the school. It was kind of a technical school for kids who wanted to graduate early and learn a trade. Like they had people welders there. They had people learning landscaping. I was learning retail sales and marketing. At the time, I thought that's what I wanted to do. And I saw nuns floating down the hallway. I saw demonic entities peeking at me in the window, in the mirror. I heard babies crying at 2 a.m. Yeah, that was the most intense energy of anywhere I've ever lived. And I haven't got a chance to do a podcast on that location because I'm trying to set up my platform now with a better camera and sound system and stuff. But I kind of want to get into helping find missing kids is kind of where my next move is. It's just like, there's so much demonic energy all over, it's just like we feel it or we don't. We see it or we don't. And I've had a run-in with a few demons, and I'm kind of good on it now. Just like I pulled a demon out of my dreams. I had scratch and claw marks up my chest and back. And that was recent. That was when I lived above a really heinous, psychologically torturing narcissist who was a lawyer here in Chicago. I got to be careful for legal reasons. I can't say her name, but it was the most horrifying experience I had with the legal system because she stole my mail, so I didn't know my court date, which led me to have a bench warrant. And I've never even had a parking ticket at this point. So, yeah, she was definitely conjuring a demon for me. And she did practice Bruja witchcraft magic, if you know what that is. And I never felt such evil ick energy living anywhere in the last 20 years as I did my last location. I've been here in my home now for about a year and a half. I can breathe now.
Nice.
But it's just because it's my house now. I don't
Right.
live above or I don't live below anymore. I live in a flat unit, a ranch home. And I really was more petrified that whatever was she was conjuring was trying to come after my kids.
Right.
Because I have two stepsons and a stepdaughter. And one's 15, one's 10, and one's 12. And they were really trying to come after my little one, Phoebe, because she screamed at the exact same time I did when I pulled myself out of that dream. And my husband was freaking out because he couldn't imagine me pulling out a demonic entity that was screaming at me in 4 different Latin languages. And I had claw marks even on my arm and down the front of my chest and my back because I felt it was digging its nails into me as I was pulling myself out of the dream. And, I do think I've done some research on this, that we can conjure demons in our dreams in the spiritual realms. And that kind of freaks me out because they based horror films on this. Nightmare on Elm Street.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So living proof that I have lived in my own horror film nightmares. But I feel like now things are so calm. It's like, please don't make me have to cleanse another demon from my family. People ask me all the time, will you come cleanse? I mean, I got a call yesterday. A guy called me and he was like, I think that there's a curse on my house and all this. And I'm just like, no, I'll get you the proper ghost people, but I can't. I don't mind doing with a group, but going in alone,
Yeah.
sorry. You asked me to come into a hospice room or a hospital to help you say goodbye to your parent. That's a different story. I don't mind that. But when I'm set up to where I feel like I could take this home with me, because we have to be very careful, and I want Brian to talk about that more than me, because I've come to advice to Brian on this very subject. It's like, how can we protect ourselves going into these paranormal locations with groups and making sure that we don't bring whatever we're feeling home with us? You know what I mean?
Right.
Oh, I know exactly what you mean. Me personally, I've never investigated in a place that with a group or anything like that. But that's what I've always said. One of my biggest fears is having something attached, and you've seen it in other groups. So, there was a group that came out of Bobby Mackey's down in Kentucky, and
I've heard of that place.
yeah,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and other places where they've taken things home. Even some investigators we've talked to have was it Nathan from WAP that said they accidentally they got rushed out of the place that they were investigating, and they didn't get a chance to kind of close their investigation the way that they do. And they felt like they brought something back home with them that they had to deal with when later down the road. I don't remember if it was a week or month or so, but yeah. So that's always been. I'm right with you there. We've talked about having, if we go, having crystals or something that makes you maybe a little bit better. I think we even talked to Brian about that.
We did
a few weeks ago.
talk about sage, prayer, prayer of protection.
Yep.
We also talked about wearing crystals. But usually sage and holy water is pretty good. And I told you about the entity that followed my son, Hoyt.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it could be different. Luckily, knock on wood, nothing bad has followed me home yet.
I got you, brother. I got you right there too. Okay. So you said you lived in New Orleans.
Yes, that's where my mom's family's from.
Yeah.
And right outside of Slidell area and Monroe, I have a lot of family down there. I still have a sister that has a flower shop in the French Quarter, and there's a lot of activity actually in her flower shop. I told her, I don't care how much you pay me, I am not closing shop for you ever again.
What can I ask the name of the flower shop?
It's called Floral Savage. It's on Royal and Esplanade.
We are heading there in a few weeks. We are Bobby's sister lives in Louisiana, and then we always go down to New Orleans for a couple days just to hang out. That's why I was asking. But yeah, I love the French Quarter, love Bourbon Street. I've only been there one time, but I had a great time.
Only thing I always felt about the energy in New Orleans is that I didn't like is it always tried to touch me. I'm not big on spirit trying to touch me. Like they like to touch the hair or grace the shoulder, and it just chills up my spine. But I felt a lot of energy touching me in New Orleans, especially when I walked through the quarter. And there's just so much going on there. You have no idea. And it just stems back to the roots of hoodoo voodoo and practices, rituals from the dawn of time down there, from Haiti and Guam, and just so many roots. And the fact that they can't bury their dead there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And going through some of the old crypts and where a lot of famous people are buried. We went to see the Anne Rice tomb recently when I went home, and I felt a lot of energy there. And I kept seeing her in my mind, and I'm thinking, oh, Lord, I read your books. Okay, I paid. You know I'm a fan. But it was more like I just felt like she was very protective of her tomb and she didn't want anybody getting too close taking pictures.
Oh,
That's
right
how
on.
I felt. Kind of like, back off, sister. I know you bought my books, but back off. And when I lived there, when I was younger, I actually saw her one time at 5 o'clock in the morning. I don't remember where I was going. I was in the car and I saw her Royal and no, where was I? I was St. Charles, right? St. Charles and Napoleon. And I saw her walking her dogs and she had on like a red cloak. I mean, she's like really theatrical. I heard people who have talked to her say she's really, my sister's met her a few times. I never did, that she's kind of out there. And I think, yeah, that makes sense because when I got close to her tomb, she was just like, hey, hello. I'm not doing any book signing right now. You can back off now. So it's just, yeah, there's just a lot of very territorial, I feel very territorial, unfinished business in the French Quarter and in the lower end of the Garden District where she lives. And that's where I mainly lived in New Orleans. I lived in the Bywater, outside the Marigny Triangle, right outside the French Quarter, and I lived in the Garden District, which was my favorite place to live because I would open up my windows when I lived out in St. Charles and I would see the streetcars go by every 5 minutes and I would be out on my little patio reading my Anne Rice book. And I felt like a character in the book because everything she would talk about in her books, I'm right there looking at. So it was nice. The whole vampire and gothic era of the 90s that I went through in New Orleans. And I did patron a lot of the vampire bars that still people go on tours in. And it's just a bunch of drunk goth kids. Don't let anybody fool you. Real vampires don't make themselves known as what I've been told. They don't make themselves known. I do believe there is such things as vampires. Trust me. There are. They're not just in Hollywood either. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Right.
And I did work in Hollywood for a short time as a makeup artist and a lash extension artist because I've been doing lash extensions. I'm a medical esthetician. I've been doing lash extensions for about 20 years now. And I used to own my own shops here in Chicago. And now I work completely out of my home. I have a spa in my home. But I did work for a short period of time in Hollywood. And I have to say that that was the most unsettling energy to work in ever in my life. I couldn't breathe around those people either. At all. And I did see some things that didn't make any sense. And then years later, I'm just thinking, okay, that's what I was seeing. Kind of the whole conspiracy theories around shapeshifters, if you know what I mean.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
You gotta love those conspiracy theories, J-Dub.
Oh, yeah.
Come on.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Jen
I
does
saw
not like
some
aliens.
things that didn't make sense. And I just thought I was going crazy there. And I felt that many times in my life where I felt like I was going nuts, the things that I was feeling and seeing. Like when I lived in the dormitory and in Baltimore, when I lived in New Orleans, when I lived in New York, even living here, I felt some things and saw some things that I'm just like, am I losing my mind? Did I just see their eye shape shift? Did I just see their face shape shift? I even have photos of it. I showed Brian
Yeah.
of like images of people's face shape shifting. And I'm like, is this just from the camera? Is this just from like shooting it really quick and snapshotting it? It's just like, you know, the pixelation of the picture. And he looked at it, he's like, you remember Brian? I'm like, no, that's yeah. So I think we're going to be catching more things off guard in the corner of our eye, and we know that we're not crazy. But a lot of people are coming out on the internet saying that they keep seeing these demon face syndromes. They're just like, what is that? And I'm like, no, this has been going on forever. I think we're just more awakened and more attuned and paying attention is what I
Right.
feel.
Yeah, I watched a video a couple nights ago where it's almost like they're catching people on camera freezing. Cardi B was one of them that was a big one,
Yes.
where like she's in the middle of a conversation and she just stops.
Or like
With
Katy Perry with the
Carrie
doll
with the
eye.
With the doll,
eye.
yeah,
Remember, she kept going like this, and they said, "Oh, her eyelashes were stuck." I had to laugh at that. No, your eyelashes aren't going to stick to where your eye doesn't completely move. Your lid's not moving, and you're having to pull your lid up. No, that looks very AI to me.
Yeah, it's pretty intriguing to. Of course, you know, I always jump in on some of these videos just to see what's out there, and always keep an open mind about absolutely everything, and especially nowadays, like we've talked about several times in the podcast, with the government actually starting now to saying that, yeah, well, you know, we did have this UFO at this facility or this. You can look at me all like that all you want. You know that this is what's
I don't
coming
want
out.
to talk about aliens. I hate aliens.
I love that you hate aliens. It's awesome, but I think they are. I think we're being prepared. I honestly believe we are being prepared for the next step, so that we're not all in a 100% panic when they finally
Well,
say.
I will be anyways.
Yeah, I know
I
you
will be.
Yeah.
I talked to special forces military groups about aliens because I wanted to know what the whole Space Force thing was and why Trump instilled Space Force. And they said, don't play stupid, psychic.
Whoa.
It's not a good look, is what they said to me. And they were just like, you know that they always have been here and they're always going to be here. And I said, yeah, I believe it.
I think our mission tomorrow, J-Dub, is to spend their time at work trying to figure out which ones are.
You can. I'm not going to.
Because they can look just like us in
I
our little
know.
skin, in their little skin suits, you know. Not to scare the audience,
I
but
can do this all day.
they wear
Have you-
very interesting masks, some of them, you know.
Have you ever turned down reading a person?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I don't read the rude, meaning I don't read people with toxic psychological personality disorders. No sociopaths, no psychopaths, no narcissistic energy.
And you can just tell that?
Immediately.
Gotcha.
I
Can
dropped
you,
many hints that I was raised by them.
Now, like, can you tell just if somebody else is a psychic?
Oh, well, I mean, we all have psychic mediumship abilities, but I feel like more that we're in tune with them, the more we exercise them. They're just like muscles. The more we exercise this muscle, the better it gets. I try to explain to people, we all have intuitive abilities, but most of the time when I read psychics, they love to tell me right up front, well, you know, I'm a psychic too. And I'm like, right on, girl. But I always ask, because I seek other psychics that I'm friends. Like, I get double clarity and double confirmation. And I think it's great that we can do that for each other, because I'm friends with a lot of other psychic mediums online. And there's something that I'm feeling is coming, or I'm kind of like, shaking my head on, staying up at night, worrying about something. I keep getting downloads on something. I do check in with other psychic mediums and be like, what are you getting? And we're all getting similar stuff. And we have since COVID. We have been getting the same downloads. And it's just like mind blowing how we're all like feeling this intense energy coming. and it's been coming for us in a good way. But there's a lot more shock value before it gets better, though, I feel, especially with the money coming. You guys are getting quiet. You're like, what?
I
What
am
money
processing
coming?
right now.
My head kind of hurts.
the money that this country has been stealing from us through the bureaucratic three-letter agencies from the dawn of time. I mean, there's some big Supreme Court cases that have been ruled on, and I think that that's going to be revolutionary, that to know that, you know, we are getting a sense of independence and freedom and sovereignty, but we've worked very hard to get there, and it's going to be a little bit longer. And it doesn't matter who the president is. This country is a corporation, and it's dying in itself. It's being deteriorated, stripped through all the agencies. And I don't even know how they pulled it off, to be honest with you. I don't even know, because that's the kind of thing that people always want to look into. It's like all the conspiracy theories, like, is there the 1% that's running the show? Right now, we're looking on the news and we're like, who's running the country already? Like, what's going on? And I think that that's the big thing that's about to come out, is just like, who really has been running the country? They're going to have to tell us. And I think that we're going to be just fine. We're a strong nation. And I think more countries are kind of rooting on us right now. If you didn't know, like, God, my England clients are just like, is it coming yet? Did you guys get word yet? Like, what's going on with your elections? Here's my prediction for you. Don't shoot the messenger if you're a political person, but there will be no election. I feel it. And I've talked to other psychics. They don't feel it either. And you know why?
No.
Because everything was set up in a fraudulent way, and we're the corporation United States has been dismantled. The corporation United States is going to be dissolved. So we're going back to the Republic of the United States. So do a little research there. And the military are kind of dropping clues right now that they're ready to take it to phase 2, since the attempt on Trump's life, which they've asked me to look into that too. And it's very interesting that I don't feel that was the real Trump.
Oh.
I think that they got prepared for that one. But to me, I feel like it was just a casualty because people, were unalived. That I'm so used to saying unalived because of the internet. Somebody was unalived at that rally from them trying to hit the Trump. But I feel like there's so much staged events that have already happened that will change the trajectory of what's to come, because they've been staging these things back to the assassination of Kennedy.
Right.
That's something coming. I think there's just definitely a lot of unfinished business from Kennedy and the CIA assassination. And that's what this is about right now. And I think that everybody's going to be pretty shocked what they're going to come up with in the next 2 weeks about what the military have to put in place. And if anybody's looked at DC on some of the webcams lately, my ex-husband lives there, and the whole place is boarded up again, and there's fences around the White House, and I believe they said all the major federal buildings again. Something's happening. Yeah, and I'm just like, oh God, if we go into another lockdown. But I'm not feeling that. People keep asking me, do you think we're going to have another virus scare? Not really, but I keep feeling that it may be something that's a kind of a similar vibe, but it won't be as intense. And I don't feel the fatalities. I don't feel the death rate that I did during COVID. I don't think it's that. I think it's definitely something that has to do with the military and something about releasing us to being more of a sovereign country, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to get off topic. I hate to talk about politics, but that's all people are asking me in the last 2 weeks. It's like, no, I don't. You shouldn't be concerned about who your president is. You need to be concerned about your rights being stripped from you. That's kind of
right.
So that's kind of the big topic. Everybody wants to know, is Trump going to be, is he coming back? Are we going to be able to really build this economy back? Are we ever going to be able to get out there and start working again? I think we're going to go through a major tech boom in the next 10 years, kind of like we did when we went from the big cell phones to the dial-up to, computers, laptops, and how technology became so vast in just such a quick period of time. I think a lot of technologies, and I've done my research, have been basically taken from us. They don't want us to have these things just yet because they can't make money off of it as much as
Hmm.
they do us going to doctors, physicians, treatments, cancer treatments. They've got some really big breakthroughs in technology coming for schools, hospitals, and our money. And banking is about to change too. And I keep getting the same downloads from people who I've been working with for years that are psychics that really are feeling that we're also going to be getting a new currency that may be backed by something for once.
Well, I mean, that has been the lines that I've been hearing that, we're no longer going to have, there's no longer going to be any form of cash. Everything's going to be some form of digital currency.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, in my rebuttal to that to them was, I mean, we've already taken giant steps in that direction. I mean, there's not, everything is direct deposited. Everything is a card. I mean, there was a day when you would get a check and we go to the bank and we'd have cash and we'd, put some in there to pay our bills in our checking account to write a check. And now there's none of that. Everything is online
Yeah.
or,
Yeah.
and through that. So it's been in my opinion, we've been working toward this for, years now. And so it would not surprise me that boom, there's not going to be a U.S. currency like a $5 bill anymore, that everything is going to be wrapped up in our computers. And now the big push towards AI. I mean, what a giant push in the last year towards
Mhm.
AI. It's
Mhm.
insane. AI spies on us.
Yep.
Well, I heard from some military groups with the trafficking awareness that we could get a currency that has a microchip in it. And there's a reason why for this. And everybody's going to say, well, it's just another excuse for them to spy, Oracle. Come on. Well, they do have a microchip in all our passports, and we do have a chip in our phone. I mean, we're a
Mhm.
walking just tracker right there.
Yeah.
But the microchip that's supposed to be in this new money, whether it's they do want to have currency that is, backed by precious metal and gold is what I'm hearing. But they do want currencies that do have the microchips so they stop buying children. That's what I'm hearing. And I think that's pretty interesting because for the longest time, they were mainly buying children with Bitcoin.
Oh, really?
Yes. Which I think may change. I don't think it'll completely go away, but I think the structure of it will be different. And I sense that's coming. And my husband gets into the XRPs and all that stuff, and I have no clue. I have no clue. I'm just like, that's not real money, honey. You gotta be careful there. He's like, yes, it
Yeah,
is.
Tom
I'm
Brady.
like, it's owned by the bad guys, and they can flip on the switch when they want. And it's funny, I had a boyfriend before my husband that threw his laptop out his skyscraper window. I'm lucky he didn't hit anybody because he lost 5,000 Bitcoins in one afternoon. And I
Oh,
was
wow.
just like, is it worth destroying a beautiful laptop because that money is not really a real currency through the Fed? And he's like, well, that's the whole concept, is that we avoid the Fed. Well, that's the kind of money I see coming, is that it wouldn't have any affiliation with the Federal Reserve. I feel like the Federal Reserve's going under, and I'm waiting for that. Trust me. The
Well,
Fed is dead.
let me ask you girls, do you have anything else you'd like to ask Olivia?
No, but I've enjoyed this.
Yes, very much. Very much. You're very
Well,
I wouldn't be able to do what you do.
well, like, so I have my best friend. Her was supposed to be married a few years ago, but her fiance died from COVID related stuff. How would she get a hold of you if she wanted a reading?
Tell her just to call me or text message me. You guys have my phone number. Or
Okay.
she can go to my website, www.oraclepink.co. It's not com, it's co, C-O, because I had a .com and it kept getting hacked. So I got a new web designer and he's like, it's the new innovative thing is the .co. And I haven't had any problems with it. So if you guys want to just throw her my website or my phone number, I do not mind at all. And she can even drop your name and I'll give her a referral discount.
Nice.
Okay.
Well, she still has to go to Menards to pick up some paint to repaint the bathroom she destroyed. But
She
Not me.
the bathroom.
Not me, my friend.
it's a standing joke between the three of us about her bathroom habits. But I put it on the pod whenever I can.
Not mine.
Yeah, her friend.
Oh, you guys are out there.
Yeah, sorry. It has nothing to do with nothing. But Olivia, thank you so much. We so much appreciate you coming, taking the time. And would you come back again?
You bet.
All right.
Because I love coming on when there's a major world event coming that's going to provide us clarity and freedom. I'm ready to get you guys prepared for what is coming. Drum roll, please. I'm ready to go.
I'll put it in there. I'll put the drum roll in there. Now, did you say you're working on a podcast?
I'm working to get my own podcast. I'm looking to get a podcast. I was actually looking into this platform that you guys are using. I want something that I can put out there in marketing and things of that nature, because the things that I talk about, obviously, you've heard me for the last hour talking about things that some internet platforms deem as quite controversial.
Right.
I mean, I've lost so many channels with the misinformation and all this, and yet I have receipts, I have photos, I have videos, but they just don't want to hear about things that actually may change people's thoughts about government, about religion, about just you name it. And I feel like that this is something that I've been wanting to do for the last 10 years, is find other people like me with remote viewing and put them up on a panel like this, and let's find some missing kids.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
and also let's help console these parents. That's one of the hardest jobs that I have, is consoling the parents that come to me that their child has been abducted. That's the hardest for me to have to explain to the parent if I do feel that the child has been, because I have had maybe a handful of those. Thank God it hasn't been too many where their child was taken and unalived, unfortunately. But most of the time, I feel like they're lost at that point when they're coming to people like us, because the cops have kind of closed the chapter, closed the folder, and closed the case, and they've lost hope. And a lot of it, it's not just that, it's just these cops, there's only so much that they can work on each case because of funding. And that's where a lot of these kids go under the radar, because they'll only work and send so many search units out to these locations. We do have some new technology. I can't explain what it is, the military stuff, but we are finding children more than ever with these technologies, thank God. But a lot of these cases in some of these bigger cities, or some of these countries where they don't have the best policing, it's very hard to like really look into these cases without being at risk of being sued actually by the police. So there's so many like red tape situations I have to deal with, and it's just like I have to get the parents to sign a release form that now you're looking into this because you've lost hope in the justice system. You've lost hope with the police. And then I start looking, and I just want to bring up other people I've helped first, have them tell their stories, and then bring up people that I trust that do what I do, and us get working on this, because I want people to know that you may have it somewhere out there. You think you're crazy and your mom's taking you the therapist to play Parcheesi. You're not alone. There's
Right.
millions, probably billions of us out there. And I just feel like if I don't find people out there that can do this, I mean, I know that I'm not the only human on the planet that can do this. I found several, but some of them are like, I don't know, you're getting into human trafficking talk. I mean, we got kids live. We got to be careful. And that is something that I have to think about, because, I am a stepmother, and I have to be very careful. And unfortunately, since I've been talking about my projects on Instagram and Facebook and TikTok, I have had unalive threats from known predators on child exploitated lists. Unfortunately, I have. They don't want me to talk about this. They don't want me to create awareness about this. And they don't want me to talk about how we're out here working with the police to help find these kids. Because there's more of us now on TikTok, but since I've gotten that last threat, my husband's kind of like, can you just go somewhere else that you can just put it up, advertise it, and then people can go and listen to it and not be where you're a threat, where they're coming into the live that you're in
Right.
and being able to track where you are. That's what I'm concerned about, is my safety. So I have to make sure that my face is covered. I have a filter or something of that nature. But I don't know how I'm going to go about it. I've been talking to some attorneys and they say, I don't think there's anything wrong with talking about that you've used your abilities to help find missing kids, and that you're using other psychic panelists to come up and talk about how they want to help you find missing kids. It's more like you have to be careful of talking about where you're located and who your kids are. So that's kind of what I'm working and ironing out right now.
Gotcha.
Yep. Well, as you work towards your podcast, if you have questions or need any help getting things set up, just give me a shout. You got my phone number.
Thank you.
I'll pick up anytime you call.
Thank you
he's a
guys
guru.
so much.
I'm a guru. It
I
may
need
take me a
help.
minute to process how to do it, but I'll get you hooked up.
I'm excited because I've done it on Facebook, and I brought up other psychics on Facebook, and people have come in and they're like, my brother, unexplained, he, was shot at a mall or whatever. What was that about? Was he just, wrong place, wrong time? Were they targeting him? And we look into it, and we keep getting the same messages. We keep getting the same downloads when we're channeling. We saw the make and model of the car, what he looked like. It's so fascinating to watch as an innocent bystander. You're like flipping through and be like, these psychics are like looking into like homicide cases and like, we're going to do it. I just think that if the cops don't want to talk about how they've been using us since the dawn of time anyway, we're going to just make ourselves known that we want to help. And I don't know any police agency or authority agency that would oppose tips that are resourceful and useful.
Right.
And I have channeled so hard that I have seen license plates in my mind, and they have been license plates on the Amber Alerts.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, I'm just like, okay, I get it, Spirit. I'm ready. It's like, I know I'm ready to do this. I think that was the last thing for me. It was just like, okay, I know that I'm not losing my mind. I'm meant to do this, besides having dreams where I see myself doing this. So it's just kind of like, it's time to get moving and stop worrying so much that people are going to come after me or hurt my babies, or come after me in a personal way, because I'm not going to stop. I don't care how many threats I've gotten. And I've gotten a couple. But it's just gross that I can't talk about this on the internet. I've lost 2 Facebook pages and I've lost 3 TikTok accounts talking about this.
Wow.
I believe it. I believe it.
Thank you so much, guys.
I got banned on Facebook because I got in Facebook jail because I posted a video of my dog farting. I mean, and my hashtags were like hot dog farts, burn your nose. I mean, really? So Facebook's just
there's better outlets. Weird. There's better outlets than Facebook. Absolutely. Yeah. We just need to find them all. But yes, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
We very much appreciate it. Brian, good to see you, buddy.
Yeah.
You guys too. Sorry. But
go check out the United States of Paranormal.com, where Northwest Indiana Paranormal is our spotlight of the month on our website.
Awesome.
Right on the front page. Go check it out. Also, there's a clip from our Patreon if you want to go check that out. One of the reaction videos from our top tier. And of course, our fan of the month, the Straw Man, is on there repping his Celestial Stag t-shirt. You'll notice that the girls are both wearing the Golden Oldies t-shirt. That is right. That's me DJing. Well after I'm unalive, but I look good doing it. Thank you Olivia, thank you,
Thank
Brian.
you for having me.
And I definitely look forward to seeing both of you again. So let's do it again.
I'm sending my friend your information.
Okay, great. I look forward to hearing from her.
All right, guys.
Take care.
Bye.
Yes.
We will,
You too.
as I always say on the way out, keep it spooky. And I'll see you on the other side.
Bye.
Bye.
Hi, guys.
Thank you for listening to the United States of Paranormal podcast. Check us out at theunitedstatesofparanormal.com, where you can find our Spotlight of the Month, Fan of the Month, and all of our amazing merchandise. Or you can find us on social media at Facebook at the United States of Paranormal, Instagram at the United States of Paranormal, and YouTube at the United States of Paranormal 1795. And don't forget, we are now on Patreon. Just go to patreon.com/2sop.
Please check out the other podcasts in the Golden Mojo Entertainment Network of podcasts. The Call Guys, Golden Image Podcast, Indiana Chiefs Fans, Golden 80s, The Gridiron Kings, Murd Nerds, and A Quart of Books and Booze, all of which can be found at goldenmojoent.com or wherever you stream your favorite podcasts.
And if you have a location or a story that you would like for us to check into, please email us at theunitedstatesofparanormal@gmail.com. Please like, rate, and subscribe wherever you listen. Thank you for all of your support. Bye.